So, about, I don't know, it was probably last November 2016, December, somewhere in there, we started talking pretty serious about some sort of a consolidation. And through the last year, we've done more work together. We've got ILAs. When I go on vacation, everybody gets Chief Hunter's number. When he goes on vacation, they all get my number. Things like that. We've worked together on flood responses, fire responses. We've now, we've got our resident program staying in their residence quarters, providing some EMS right now as we kind of move forward with things. And at some point along the lines, and through the Department of Health remediation plan, is decided to put the merger District 9 and 16 to a vote. Since then, we've had a couple of meetings as far as the committee goes. We welcome more people to come to those committee meetings. We will get them announced. We would like public input from district members from both 16 and 9. And then specifically also one or two from the Skokomish tribe, because it does affect them. They are a pretty major stakeholder in the District 9 side of things. One of the things that we've talked about, and I wasn't at the last two meetings, I'm sorry, so I don't have all the information, but we did talk about going and trying to do this with a petition instead of going to a vote. So if we could do it with a petition earlier, that would be great. And we've talked about a bunch of different things. Again, I wasn't at the last two meetings. If either Al, Chief Hunter, or Carly could fill everybody in, that'd be great.
Well, I provided some documents today to the, I guess the 10 of us or so sitting up here that has the steps of the process for our proposed merger, for if we were to do this via petition, each of the steps of the petition in accordance with the RCW. It is my working notes, so there are a couple of things in bold that I still needed to put some more work into, but that's where they were at for now. And that includes all of the RCWs that apply to it behind it. So if we were to decide that we wanted to go with, as both commissions, to move forward with going to a merger, it would require 3/5, which is 60% of the votes of the qualified electors within Mason County Fire District 9's area. That's all in here. I also included a page that has the sample wording for a petition. There's two different samples on there that we can look at and select. Does not have to happen today. This is just kind of where we were at with things. At our meeting yesterday, Chief Hunter and Commissioner Al and I had talked about putting together a proposed organizational chart for what the districts would look like, or what the district would look like organizationally, and I provided a copy of that down there as well. We do need to determine still what we're going to do with the commission. We would like to split into commissioner districts, or create commissioner districts, so that as we come down to a 3-member commission, if we want to have those districts, that has to go to vote to the people as well. And we've talked about having a design created so that we can have some kind of something to wear when we go knock on doors or talk to people, represent the merger process, to put on a t-shirt or to use as a logo for the time being until we become a merged district. And there are a couple of proposed samples back there, and there's some slips I put a little thing down there to vote. If anybody would like to take a peek and vote on that, we welcome input. And we would definitely like to open up to some citizens and get some input there, and then a citizen advisory type board. And Al, I didn't get to talk to you yet. I was able to talk to Chief Hunter about it earlier, but we did discuss what the levy rate would then the process for the levy rate as well. And that's something that we've discussed a lot among us. The merging district, which will be District 9, that merges into District 16, assumes the levy rate of District 16. We were approved for the $1.50 per $1,000 of assessed value. However, due to the assessed value of homes are at $1.42 right now, and that is projected to actually go down again for 2019. District 9 was at $1.22 per thousand up until January 1st with their base levy and their EMS levy. And in kind of preparation of going forward with the merging process, opted to not renew that, knowing that we were going to move forward and ask to come up instead of putting that out there twice. So currently you're at 72 cents per thousand. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's 70 something cents per $1,000. So the
71.
71.
71.3.
Okay. They were at $1.22, so we would have been asking to come up roughly 20 cents. Now we're asking to come up, closer to 70 cents. 71 cents potentially, just a little bit less than that, depending on what happens with the 2019 rate. That takes effect automatically once the merger is approved and filed with the auditor's office.
But it won't take effect until 2019.
It could be July, if things are completed before July. It could happen for July 1st of 2018. If it's not all approved before July, if it's on the November ballot, it would be approved for January 1st of 2019.
Anything else on the consolidation?
Unless the other members of the committee would like to say something there. No.
Okay. New business for District 9.
Merger.
Anything you want to discuss over that?
Pardon me?
Or you want to discuss something over that?
I don't. It depends on the people that are in
Okay,
here.
so we'll open that to the public.
Yeah.
Okay. For new business under District 16, the only thing I have listed is Commissioner Burbidge is going to be unable to attend our meeting on May 9th, and I make a motion to give him an excused absence.
I'll second that.
Favor?
Aye.
And I have a thank you letter to one of our firefighters with a donation. This is to Mike Remkus. He wanted to address to District 16. Thank you all so much for what you did for me and everyone every day. The volunteer firefighters at AMT and Mason County are something to be very proud of. And she sent, this is just a copy of the check that she sent for something that Mike helped her out in a time of need.
So, thank you, Mike.
Situation. Secondly, I want to at least give an appreciation thank you to retired firefighter Ron Redmond, who's just come back from Puerto Rico doing some FEMA stuff. He brought some patches from the Puerto Rican Fire Department for our districts to have. So thank you, Ron,
Plus one
for
on
that. So at this point in time, I'm going to open it up to the public. If you have a comment or question you'd like to ask, all I would ask is you speak loudly so my recorder can pick it up and provide me your name, please. Any questions from the public?
Yeah, I have several. My name's David Miner.
Okay.
Where's the original document that came from Mesa 9 to 16 to discuss this? Was it a resolution or was it an initial petition that met all the criteria?
It was a resolution that came through
Is there a copy of it?
it's in the minutes, yeah.
Okay, great. And where can I find those minutes?
Public document, so when you put in a request. Just the public records request through the county.
I'll put in a public records request. So none of it's online for either district, is that correct?
That is correct.
Will any of this be online for either district?
We don't have plans to at this point for District 16. I can't speak for District 9.
So none of it will be uploaded?
Leave minor.
Okay. Then the next question would be, what is the current timeline for a milestone document that would be out?
Timeline for what?
Like a milestones? You know, she's saying possibly July. Where's the timeline?
At the RCW. The timeline is in the RCW for when the action needs to happen before things are adopted in. And it's in RCW 52.06. I
Oh, yeah.
can't tell you the specific. It's on the state's website. Oh, you have a copy of it there. I don't have all of them here with me yet.
So, but the two commissions haven't built a timeline based on RCW?
Yes.
Yes, they have, or yes?
Oh, it's
they have
the
not?
timeline that we're working towards is based on the RCW.
Right, and those, is there dates associated with the timeline?
We have not set specific dates yet.
Okay.
We are working on that through the planning
Okay,
committee.
that was mine.
Okay.
I guess I should have-
But using that as a guideline, yes, sir.
Okay, so you're using 52 as a guideline, but there's no dates built yet?
Correct, sir.
If I can answer your question on the milestones.
Yeah.
Two milestones that have occurred is strategic planning on how the two districts can create a new model. An additional milestone is the interlocal agreement that brought Carly up to medical services officer for both districts, and that preserved a Department of Health licensing issue for District 9. I would go thirdly, as the chief mentioned, the recruitment and retention efforts, and I'll speak for our board, have been phenomenal by the work of Chief Wheeler and Chief Howell. District 16 is a completely different district than 4 years ago. The board has changed, the chief officers have changed. The recruitment efforts have been very positive. When I first came on board as a commissioner, we didn't have people standing around the station in uniforms. So, in the work of just strategically talking about our future, we've achieved milestones, and we want to keep that going.
What's the current budget, total budget for 16? Roughly.
Our projected budget for this last year was $307,000.
With a total of how many paid and volunteers?
One paid, we budget for 20 volunteers.
And what's Nine's current budget? Rough.
The current budget for District 9 for fire is $91,580, there's $78.79.
And that's just with one pay, right?
Yes.
Admin assistant?
Right.
So each district has approximately, what, 3,200 people? 2,500? Is that enough?
Possibly, yes, sir.
I don't know what you guys do. We use 3,500 for grant purposes for District 9.
We're at roughly 3,000 members, so we have to include the inmates at the correction center as well.
And no one has concern over the size that this would become. The size is humongous.
Sure.
It's a lot of territory to cover. And 20 volunteers, good on them. That's fantastic. I'm glad that they have that opportunity. But that's a lot of territory to cover for 9 and for the citizens of 16.
I think the thing that you're overlooking though is that we're currently protecting it. And we're currently protecting it with those small numbers of people. And as we move forward and improve relationships with the districts around us, we're using more mutual aid. We're getting the closest people. We're getting the best trained folks. We're getting the best equipment to your stuff. So it isn't that it's huge. It's that we're actually consolidating something that is already there. We're putting it under one administration. We're streamlining things. We're helping to make capital improvements with what we currently have when you combine the two sets of incomes. And yeah, there is a lot of territory there, but we've been covering it, and we missed darn few calls. I can't think of one in the last year or so. And then again, with these relationships, we've also improved the relationships with the districts around us, and we've gotten more help from them as well. So.
And we also inherited a 60-year-old model.
Right.
You know, these jurisdictions were drawn in a time of need when there was no protection at all. I would say each one of the commissioners up here are stressed and concerned about protecting 100 square miles, but that's not 100 square miles densely packed with population. You know, we have pockets. Reducing the redundancy and using our money more efficiently, as the chief said, it's going to build our partners. We have some partners we haven't tapped into, and we do not have staff that has time to tap into grants from all disciplines. That is a time consuming. So it does take a partnership and dissolve some lines to create some labor to better your jurisdiction. I'll restate, we are far better off today than we were 5 years ago, and that is a big celebration.
Well, with that, is there a 3-year model on where you want to be? Is that part of this? Or are we just more worried about, let's basically, I mean, for all intents and purposes, dissolve 9? I mean, really, that's really kind of what you're doing. That's not a great word to use, but, so what's the model look like? We get all this done, and then we say what? What's the next step? Or do we wait till then, or where are we at in 3 years? Does the chief need 4 people paid? Does it, what are we doing, and what does that look like? Is that even part of the equation, or do we just wait?
That is a part of the equation. One of the goals of the planning committee when we formed the planning committee was to work out a comprehensive service plan for moving into the future and what that is going to entail. We're very early in that process, so we've started that. We have our proposed organizational chart, which was a good start towards that and what that's going to look like for future coverage. And looking into the strategic planning is a very high priority for that committee.
It was far from having District 9 dissolved. What it was to bring the District 16 in to help us better serve our population of people that live there, and we didn't have the coverage of the EMS to staff the vehicles, and they do, and they're working with us to make sure that the people get the care they need and get the response in a timely manner.
It is a mutually beneficial agreement. It's not just District 16 coming in and taking over what they're doing. We benefit just as well. We have a shared residence program that's very strongly supported by District 9. There's a lot of mutual work. It's not just one coming in. We're very much working together through this process.
I don't see it as a takeover, so don't take it that way.
Okay.
I have
You
zero
say
problem.
dissolve that.
Yeah, I
is
don't
that
see it
negative
as a takeover.
tone?
I get where 2 districts need to work together and it's got to be better. The question is, is it truly better? Is this the better way to go, or is there an even better way, and we're just making a stop along the way? And if we're only making a stop along the way, we don't solve a single problem, right?
Mr. Minor, I agree with you 100%. You are welcome to join the Citizen Advisory Board, and I know you have a wealth of background in public safety and all that, so I'd encourage you to join the Citizen Advisory Board and put those perspectives out so you have say and help us develop the most perfect model we can for this future.
It's something I would consider. Thank you for that.
If you look at a year and a half, we may have started a little non-traditional. One of the objectives out of the planning committee is going to be a linear business plan. We took a completely different approach. It wasn't really working for us. Trying to establish a linear strategic plan. And we actually started by mind mapping the two districts and how they can work together. And we have all those photos of some pretty creative, it opened up conversation. It looks like a dry erase board with a lot of colors, a lot of arches, a lot of squiggly lines. I was accused of being a cartoonist, and I'm not offended. But we really took a right-brain approach to get all of our thoughts and creativity out so we could just have that conversation. That has partially morphed into a linear strategic plan, and I'm happy to provide those.
We did look at multiple different ways of doing this too. We looked at, a regional fire authority, we looked at a merger, we looked at, contract consolidations, which is still something possible. There are lots of options out there. However, a couple of the things were taken off the table by virtue of the fact that we have things like a private ambulance in town, which makes forming an RFA and working with that private ambulance difficult at best. So the regional fire authority, between two pretty small districts, even though they're large geographically, they're pretty small in numbers and pretty small in budget. Doing the regional fire authority between us two, and we brought in Chief Bo Bakken from North Mason Regional Fire Authority to talk to us, and even he said, when you look at your numbers, when you look at your land, when you look at everything going on, a simple merger is your best bet. Now, through the U.S. Fire Administration would love to see far fewer districts than we currently have in the United States. It's not the most efficient or effective model. There are fewer volunteers than there have ever been. There are more fires than there have ever been across the board. There's more aid calls. Our call volume is up, our volunteers are down. So we do need to find a better way of doing it. In talking to people that have been through this before, this was, in our opinion, the best route to solve all of our problems now. Down the road, yeah, it would be great if there was only one or two districts in Mason County. And down the road, maybe we will see a regional fire authority. But right now, you have two districts that want the best for their people. They want the best for their tax dollars. They want the best for their equipment. And this is what we came up with, using outside information, outside influences, outside people that have been through it before. We didn't just stagger into the room and go, hey, let's merge. This was well thought out, and we are still early in the process.
So, but on a cost basis, right? I mean, obviously, we're really not going up that much. We're going 20 cents, maybe 25.
And from where you were last year,
Yeah.
it looks a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, you use that because that's what we had been at for a while. Or do we find more value in the cost than what we had before, and how does that get monitored? How does 16 go about their way of monitoring cost value? What is the cost value analysis of, okay, if they're all paying X?
So if they're all paying X right now, the easy cost value for District 16 is we want to put on a residence program because it's an easy way to get more volunteers, better trained volunteers. You can tap into college programs, things like that. And we didn't have residence quarters, and we didn't have the money to build residence quarters. District 9 has residence quarters, but they didn't have the people to staff them. So we talked, and now we put our residents in the District 9's residence quarters. When you look at the increase in revenue just by going from the 70 cents to the buck, it'll probably be $1.36, $1.38 in 2019, that's almost enough to add another staff position. So now we can look at having full-time, at least daytime coverage, which right now we're short on weekends. We are short. People have lives. We have volunteers. And that 9 to 5 time slot, 7 days a week, is where you're short. And that's where you see most departments add their very first people. They'll hire a chief. They'll hire an assistant chief. They'll get those daytime hours covered. And with the tax increases just going to that level, we're really close to that. That puts us in a position then to negotiate a better service contract possibly with the tribe. It puts us in a position to look for better federal grant dollars through the Forest Service because we do respond up there. There's an ILA with the county sheriffs, and I'm not the best versed in that particular thing, but there's opportunities out there that this size and staffing level and all that, it puts us in a better position for.
I'd like to offer a 10-year view. In Mason County, and I speak to equal service, the most efficient and effective. For 9 years, the Fire Commissioners Association has been talking about someday. But right now, there's 12 fire districts, 1 authority. We have 45 commissioners spending $110,000 to govern fire. Now that is we in Mason County. If we are going to provide an equitable service, we have to start seeing walls tumble down. And we are choosing to be that first dollar. We've effectively, District 8 is merged into District 2 to make a regional fire authority. I completely celebrate that partnership and the direction they went. It's going to take someone to step up in a governance role and begin the consolidation process. 2, frankly, poor fire districts are going to come together, or ask the voters by petition or by vote to come together and reduce some of the redundancies that we have right here tonight. That is a first step of we in Mason County working together, and the person in Tahuya, Hamahama, Camilchi, and Spoke Valley should receive the same service. ALS, BLS, fire suppression, and wildland. But I sadly watched 12 different ways of governing, 12 different ways of leading, and frankly 12 different budgets that are limited or have the ability to expand. The we part, we have to start breaking these walls down. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that it was not something to take lightly, the whole getting together and working, and I thought about, and I didn't want to say, yes, I'm in it. I kind of stood back and waited for a while until they explained more and how it would benefit the area that we live in, and finally it came to making sense to me that it would be beneficial all the way around for everybody, and not just them or saving us because we don't have the volunteer population to help out. So it took me, I don't know, 3 or 4 months before I even decided to go along with it. So,
Well, I have more. Keep going. Okay, I just want to say something. Not to be too close, sorry, but right now, if you call and have a medical emergency or there's a car crash right outside your house, you're getting District 16 personnel, and they may or may not be in a District 9 apparatus using District 9 tools. We're working together already so closely, and we live 2 minutes down the road. Me and Angus were the residents. And this kind of just puts it on paper and makes it easier for us to move forward, because working together, but not officially, it kind of just makes it a little more complicated.
Okay. How does Medic One fit into this right now? And what is your future vision of using Medic One, or do you plan on using your own vehicles?
Well, right now, we provide as much of the BLS transport as we can, and that's one of the ways that we make money. You know, it helps offset the cost of providing those services. If we respond with Medic One, they transport every time, you know, for ALS and BLS, then all of the cost that goes out to treat our taxpayers goes, you know, either is reimbursed to us by the taxpayers, you know, through our budgets and whatever, and then the fee for the transport goes to Medic One. If we can transport, it costs very little actually to transport somebody. All the, you know, it's in the treating that costs the money. So if we can transport and then recoup some of that cost, then we can actually provide more service for essentially less tax dollars. So we will continue to work with Medic One because we don't have an ALS transport license, and I don't see an ALS transport license on the horizon. But my goal as a fire chief would be to do every possible BLS transport here because it's the best economically for our tax base.
So on your BLS transport, you're still charging even if the person's in the district?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, okay.
I would say right now, I think Medic One does the majority of the transports, but the ideal point is if we have a BLS call, a BLS unit, we can keep Medic One available for the rest of the county too, because they have limited resources too.
Right.
I think maybe some of the other people here kind of question, people in this neighborhood at least, is there anything in the plan at this point for this building?
Sir, can I get your name for the record?
Bob Brady.
Bob Brady?
Right.
Yeah, Chief, you guys want to address the building? That's operations.
That's not ours yet.
Well,
The immediate plans for me is we don't have another building for storage of equipment. You know, nothing would go away. You know, the things we've discussed, and there's nothing in writing, is, you know, we put the residence quarters out on 101 there at Miracle Heights. We do kind of have a vision of someday we could have a station there so that we can put equipment.
That Miracle Heights is where the residence is down the highway there, right?
Correct.
That's Miracle Heights, okay.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure.
right there on 101. Right?
Yeah.
It does go back to the whole, what's going to be the best bang for your buck, realistically. You know, the state laws and everything that go into just building a fire station, those are all things that we're going to have to look at as things move along. So it may not work out to be, or it may be cost prohibitive to build a station there versus maybe do something here or figure out how to just keep doing what we're doing. So, you know, when you look at a simple, last time I spec'd a simple 2-bay station with a couple residence quarters, simple kitchen, you know, places for somebody to live, it's close to $1 million if you keep it within what you're required to have. You know, floor drains, emergency showers, all of the bunker gear storage, everything has to be heated and dried, and there has to be a place to wash stuff. I mean, just the requirements to be a fire station, if you build a brand new one, make life pretty expensive. So there are going to be things that we don't have answers for today. We probably won't have answers for next week. But going forward, yes, there are things that we are thinking about. It's just a matter of how to get you the biggest bang for your buck. I mean, that's why we're doing all of this to begin with.
You never even mentioned the television and coffee pot in the fire station. They got me. I had another kind of question. When, Alan, you said you gave the fire budget and levy, but you didn't mention the EMS budget and what that levy is. And how would that all work if there was a merge? We are paying the EMS levy right now, right?
No, you're not.
You're not.
No. The county has had some budgetary problems and they have cut people, cut employees because they didn't have the funding to run the county the way they used to. Our fire department usually got a warning from either the treasurer's department or the assessor's department when our levies were on their last year and they had to be renewed. We got that information in February of this year that we weren't going to get any EMS money for 2018 because our budget was up. But they never notified us that we were in our last year. To make up for that, in their budget summary that they send out every year, they now have a spot for the fire departments that say, you are in year 3 of 6 for your, and notifying you that way, but they never used to do that.
They told you you're in year 7 of 6.
Yeah. So theoretically, we're gonna lose about $69,000 because we won't be collecting any EMS money this year. But if you take last year's rate, then all we'll have to do is add about 22 cents or 23 cents to last year's rate and let you guys take your better half out to lunch.
The future intent is not to have the separate EMS levy, it's to match up with what 16 is doing. They went to the $1.50 per thousand, and we would be following along that process rather than having an EMS levy every 6 years.
I think you lost me there.
But
say in the year 2020, if you merge, what would my levy amount be compared to what?
I think they're talking next year, the levy amount that they're
Last
down.
year, you guys were paying the $1.22 per thousand. We are currently at $1.42 per thousand. It's projected to go down again for 2019, looking at probably that $1.37, $1.38 range potentially per thousand. Could be a little less, a little bit more, but that's what it's looking like. Depending on when that merger occurs, when it's finalized, would determine what that rate is. If it hits in 2018, it'll be the $1.42 per thousand. So it would come up a little bit.
An increase that wouldn't be real significant.
Correct.
About 10 years ago, or it might have been a little longer than 10 years, Tim Iman quoted a levy to drop the cost of fire protection to only allow the fire departments to increase their budget 1% per year. Prior to that, it was 6%. So what is happening now is our fire budget from 2017 to 2018 went up about $748 because of that was the 1% increase in the assessed evaluation of the district. But then you also have your new construction, which isn't on the tax rolls yet, that you can add into that. And that's usually around $2,500 or depending on how your district is growing. But what happens is at the end of the session, your assessed evaluation has gone up this much, but you can only raise your budget 1%. So the amount of money that they collect for the next year is lower than it was last year. And that's what Carly is talking about. So, welcome to budgeting.
Need to win the lottery.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Anyway, if it's any help to you, currently, we have enough money in our EMS account to continue to provide EMS coverage.
Well, even without the EMS levy, we still
Correct.
provide EMS coverage.
Correct.
Couple examples over and above what our flat budgets are. Couple partnerships that Chief Wheelander has beefed up, just addressing District 16's maybe a 30-year-old bereavement with the prison through one meeting, one follow-up meeting. We were able to significantly increase the contract amount with the prison from $20,000 to $85,000. Chief Wheelander's up meeting with the Skokomish tribe and working with Chief Vukic. And now you have two chiefs, one police, one fire, sharing their needs together and their ability to partner and work together. So the linear plan, Dave, that you probably like to see is unfolding culturally, socially, and through partnerships of people that, the chief's just taking time to go out and work with. And those are opening up doors that we can't put a dollar figure on today. But when tribal police chief and a fire district fire chief can envision a multi-purpose building through aggressive grants, that's the direction we want to go. Those are
Historically,
partnerships
they've
that
been
we
like
wanna-
dogs and cats when it comes to money, funding.
I'm sorry, what?
So historically, they've been like dogs and cats when it comes to funding, police and fire. Always been at odds.
Sure.
They who?
Police and fire.
Oh,
Any of them,
oh, right.
all of them.
Well, Washington is an interesting state when you compare it to the other 49 with the home rule state. If you want a governance and a service, you got to build a quasi-government. If you want a cemetery, sewer, fire, EMS, a library, anything over your basic complement of county services, we get to make a layer of government. And it's not because we want to, it's because that's what the law is in Washington as a home rule state. Just trying to explain Washington taxation to somebody from Kansas, they would just as soon walk away.
What is the current amount that the Skokomish tribe is paying annually?
Yeah, you guys have fees?
With that
You guys
The
have
current contract with the Skokomish is priced at what?
I'm sorry,
How much?
it's $5,000 quarterly to cover the reservation. And if we get a call to the casino, then it's $300 per transporter per call. But the tribe wanted to separate the casino from the
Tribal budget.
from the reservation. There's also a contingency in there that if they build any new construction, the new construction will be subjected to a one-time shot of 12.5 cents per square foot. That's for a commercial building. If it's a home, If they're building new homes, it's $75 per bedroom. But that's just a one-shot thing, and then that gets that new building into the contract with
The 5,000 per quarter.
Yeah, correct.
So I guess if we're having, you know, I don't know, if this gentleman here, the fire chief for 16 is doing all this tribal work, do we now have to pay on top of that to pay for him to do that, or are we doing that because he sees it as an end-around benefit?
There's no creative money with the ILA.
Okay.
There's,
So he's doing that in goodness of his heart for me?
No,
Yes.
I'm doing it because it's my job as part of getting this whole thing to work. That's, I mean, we have an ILA in place, and if I need to go down and talk to the, you know, the tribal police chief or whoever, I do that. If Chief Hunter needs to come up and talk to our folks for whatever reason, if I'm out of town, he does that. It's part of our mutual agreement.
Yeah, I'd be happy with that. I need to see what that says. I just want to make sure it's fair and equitable to your district, because really he's doing work for us, right?
Let me see if I can clear that up for you. Right now, District 16 has got a jug, and their tax money and all the stuff that they have coming into their district is going into their jar.
Yes.
District 9 has their own jar, and everything that we have coming in goes into our jar. If we end up merging, we take those two jars and put them together. And everything that we're bringing in currently is going into this jar, and everything 16 is bringing in is going into that jar to provide the services for you guys. Does that help?
Yes.
and also this commission authorizes the chief to do that. There's an interesting relationship between commissioners and fire chiefs. Commissioners take the position that I want you to expend your labor, time, and energy that directly benefits one fire district, the one that they are employed. But when you overlay the partnership and the agencies that we work with and all the meetings, the community as a whole in Mason County is who we serve. So to ask the chief to stay in Dayton and only protect your border, have no other relationship with outside agencies, outside communities, frankly, he's an ostrich sticking his head in the sand. I go to, we all go to meetings. Does that directly benefit specifically the fire district that I represent? No, because we serve a greater whole. And those are the walls that figuratively and literally need to be broken down.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that as this process moves forward, that the gaming district, with the merger, whatever it is, merging, we're the merging, you're the merger.
16 is merger, 9 is merger.
Right, that the merger district is compensated, at least for the work being done ahead of time, right? It's just my feeling, but it doesn't matter.
I think the compensation is probably the future benefit of the relationship.
Of the longer
Kind of a longer goal.
Okay.
I don't think you could use absolute fair and equity comparing any one of the 12 fire districts to each other. One of the districts is going to have a lower tax, one's going to have a higher staff, one's going to have more calls, one's going to have less. What's the future jurisdiction? That's the focus.
Bill, are you comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I need to know.
And thank you for the questions, Dave.
We very much appreciate the feedback from the community and having those questions, because that helps us direct our focus and make sure that we are meeting your needs as citizens. We thank you.
Any other questions?
Why? This is probably a dumb question, but some point down the road, obviously, there's gonna be a chief. You know, what will the upper level, management look like? I mean, somebody's gonna be chief, somebody's gonna be assistant chief, how?
So we,
I'm going to provide you this when Commissioner Bean explains it to you. You've got this is just a working draft model. That's kind of what the two commissions and the chiefs came up with.
All right, thank you. Are you
Does that kind of answer some of the questions? Does that answer some of the questions?
Yes.
It doesn't really say here, but I think the board of commissioners ends up with 3,
Correct.
and it's
So,
all final and done.
yeah, so basically over the course of our terms, we would like to weed down the commission size to 3. So instead of paying each commissioner what RCW requires a commissioner to be paying, you're actually cutting it in half and get it down to 3. And that's where Commissioner Bean talked about, at some point in time in the planning phase, figuring out what the commission districts would be to support this model. So they're not all coming from the 16 area, they're not all coming from the 9 area, there's going to be actually a commission district. So everyone has an equal take in this.
and that's explained in RCW 52.06.085.
Okay, thank you.
And I think one of the things that we would like to see for our planning committee, which involves both Chief Hunter and Chief Wheelander, but it also has Carla and myself on there, we should have a representative from this area and a representative from out in District 16 to cover what they think their needs are, so that we can combine everything the first time instead of the third or the fourth or the fifth.
And that's kind of what I brought up to Mr. Minor earlier about joining the citizen advisory boards. Because we as a commission, even though we're elected by the taxpayers to try and do the best we can for the taxpayers, I've always believed that we need to have taxpayers in our decision-making process, so I'm not just assuming everything. I want, and that's kind of why we want on this board, someone from your community to be active in the decision-making process along with the long-term planning process.
And one of the reasons why we have selected to use the resolution method is if we can get 3/5 of the community to sign a resolution that they want to go ahead with this merger, then it does not have to go on the ballot. And the fire department, either of the fire departments, don't have to pay for the elections.
What would that cost? Anybody know that off the top of their head, roughly?
Depending on, it,
November it'll be shared, I'll take a stab, probably $2,500.
Well,
Would be our share.
It depends on how many levies are run. If you're the only levy on there, you pay for the whole election. But if there's 2 or 3 levies, then they split that up amongst those 3 people.
I think it was $1,000 when I ran for commissioner
But I
in
mean,
November.
the fire departments have to do that when they elect a fire commissioner. They
Yeah,
pay for the election.
it's crazy.
So you need roughly 1,800 to 2,100 people from Mason 9 to sign a petition. If you go by, or do you go by the last voted?
there was
Amount.
a little over 1,000, you guys have just over 1,000 registered
Yeah,
voters.
we got 1,000.
That voted?
We're still-
Registered voters.
If you go voting, then it's a percentage. If you go petition method, then it's a percentage
Yeah,
of
it's-
registered voters.
Okay.
The rate is
600. Right. If you use 1,000, I'm looking at 600.
Provided everyone on the list is alive and still living here.
Fifty.
And who knocks on that door? And that person sign
Anybody
that.
who who would like to join us in that effort?
Would you like to?
No.
Yeah, stop bribing the community by.
Any other questions? If none, I want to thank everyone for coming. And at this point in time, if there's no other questions, I'm going to take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Motion carries. The meeting is adjourned at 19:09 hours till April 5th, 2018.